and welcome to our viewers from around the world. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and MC here at Gold Learning. And here at Gold, we are preparing for the GOLD Obstetrics Online Conference of 2020, and that's just around the corner. It starts on November 9th. And with me here today is one of our speakers, Dr. Audrey Lalonde. Welcome, Dr. Lalonde.
Greetings.
It's wonderful to have you here. And as I just mentioned, you're one of our speakers. You are an obstetrician, a gynecologist, and you have done some amazing work in the world. Tell us a little bit about your background, about your work.
Well, I graduated from the University of Ottawa. Then I did a fellowship in Boston and in the Royal Victoria Hospital in Montreal. And when I began practice, I was practicing at the University Hospital, but also I was named very young chief of obstetrics at a community hospital. And that's where I experienced that, maternity was really very standard. Women were put on stirrups, even their hands and their feet were tied during delivery. There was, so I decided with some nurses, because there was no midwives there, I decided with some nurses that we were going to change things. And I started by forming a committee of women who had delivered their babies. And they advised me, and then I had a couple of fights with the hospital to change the policy, such as rooming in, leaving the baby with the mother. In them days, many years ago, the babies were kept in a nursery, and the woman would walk in the nursery and see them 2 or 3 times a day only.
Wow.
And I wanted them to be able to walk in the nursery anytime, 24 hours a day, if they went to the nursery. And then if they wanted to keep the baby in their rooms, obviously it was a small hospital, not in a rich area. So there were a lot of 4 beds in one room, so they couldn't do rooming there. But eventually, after years of working, we created a complete birthing unit. So all women would have their baby in a single room and stay there for the entire labor, delivery, and postpartum. And to get my colleagues, the physicians or other physicians, to go in the rooms individually instead of seeing 4 or 5 women at a time was another big challenge. I enjoyed it, and we made a lot of changes.
That's absolutely amazing. I mean, you're such a change maker that at that time, being, on the forefront and making change happen at the time where women, weren't able to have their babies with them after delivery and had to go to a nursery. I can only imagine how dismal the breastfeeding rates were at that time as well, right?
Oh yeah, they were very low, and it was kind of the standard. Actually, if a woman was breastfeeding, she was looked by others as being some kind of a outside the norm person. And it was like, and then there was a big movement at that time that everybody would deliver outside the hospitals if they wanted to have proper care. Well, that's not good either, because I felt that some high risk occurs instantaneously. You could be very well, and 5 minutes later you're in in a scary situation where life is being threatened. So I said to myself, I need to change the hospital and the practice. And as I said, I was supported by fantastic nurses and physicians.
Right.
Most of the deliveries were done by family physicians at that time, and they responded very well. They said,
Wow.
we want to be seen as the forefront of what is best for women. So I really enjoyed the 20 years I was there at that hospital.
Wonderful. Yeah. And it is great that you had a team with you that was also, willing to make change and being there on the forefront. Change is never easy, as we know, right? But it's also exciting to see what it can do, what is possible.
And there was a couple of fights though with the administration, because I wanted to have only one unit, labor, birth, postpartum, and in one room, one time. That means that we had to get rid of the nurseries and leave the baby in the rooms. Well, there was quite a few fights there, but we went through it.
Oh, wow.
Always with the support of the community. I had a lot of support from women in the community.
Yeah. And you mentioned something very important there. You listen to the women of the community. You had them as your advisors. You listened to them. It wasn't just like a policy or change that you introduced, because you wanted to do better. Yes, of course, but also listen to the women in the community, what their experience is, what they want for their birth as well.
And the thing that's important to realize is that many of these women, some of these women have a lot of connections. So they
Uh-huh.
would say to me, "Oh, I know somebody on the board of the hospital," and
Oh.
I wrote to them and I told them that you need to change. So that was a big help for me. So it's things like that. For example, after many years, we started to have more physicians in our group practice. I was alone for many years, but then with 3 or 4 physicians in the group, that's when I introduced the birthing plan. Because if I was on call, let's say for a weekend, and I'm delivering the colleague's baby of a colleague, a woman of a colleague, then I want to know what her preferences are because I don't
Right.
know that woman. And that made a huge difference because when they came back, the physician, or they saw the woman again, they said, "Oh, we had a tremendous good time. Your replacement followed what I would like, and etc." So we adopted that as a group. So as a group, we were very fortunate to sort of be in sync as to listening to a woman. And I think we made that unit a famous unit in Montreal. It was a leader in Montreal, in Quebec, and in Canada.
That's
We
wonderful.
were the first birthing hospital in Canada, first.
That's that's amazing. That's wonderful. What a step in history right there. And it sounds to me like you're one of the very first to implement birth plans. And
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking quite a little while ago, right? So, but even today, we see that women are going into hospitals with their birth plan, and that's not often very well received, or even introducing it to their physician, saying like, "Look, this is what I want to do." And then even to this day, staff looks at this at the hospital and goes like, "No, we're not gonna do that. We don't have time for this. We don't have time for that. Scratch that." So you coming up with being on board with the birth plan, actually not only being on board, but kind of being the one saying we're having birth plans here and implementing that. That's quite, quite a big, a big aspect there.
I know it was so important because a lot of women would ask me certain things. Like I remember some women asked me if they could have their baby standing up. I said yes. I got a big
Yes.
reaction from my staff at the hospital. So they said,
Yeah.
"What are we going to do?" Well, I said, "You can walk around following her with a drape. So
Right.
if the baby comes out, you put the drape underneath." But
Exactly.
in actual fact, they sort of squatted to have the birth. I've never seen, I've had quite a few women that wanted to birth standing up, but because of the pain, the force and
Uh-huh.
everything, they ended up being squatting. So we had a movable chair so we could move the chair so that she could sit on it while she was actually the baby coming. The other thing was the interesting thing for me was how to have skin to skin. May
Mm-hmm.
not know that, but the blouses in the hospital, with the
Yep.
woman are given a blouse, they're tied behind their back. So how can you have skin to skin? You'd have to take it all out.
Yep.
So a nurse told me, okay, we're going to reverse that. We'll tie the blouse in front, and all we have to do is open the blouse, put the
Right.
baby there, and put the blouse over. So it was all kinds of things like that that came from different people because they knew I was open to any
Yeah.
suggestions. And there's not a good or a bad method.
No.
And it's nothing to do with safety. Unfortunately, the hospitals have a lot of rules and regulations about safety, which are not based on evidence.
Absolutely. And it's very difficult to change these rules and regulations. I remember we had a presentation by a researcher a while back here at Gold, and it said it takes at least 12 or over 20 years to get something from evidence to practice for some ridiculously a long amount of time,
But
which is,
I was an impatient guy, so
yeah,
12 years is not my style. So
it sounds like
I
it.
was a bit pig-headed. So if I had in my mind that we had to change that, I would get it done. So eventually I was a member of the board of governors of the
Great.
hospital because I
Great.
thought things were not happening fast enough.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I convinced our hospital to create a complete birthing unit. They have 4,000 births and each woman has her single room.
That's fantastic. And you know, your impatience paid off big time for these women and the babies as well. I do have to tell you, you mentioned you didn't see a birth standing up. You know, everybody squatted. I have seen it twice, a birth standing up, and one lady, she was a very strong lady on her tippy toes. I don't know to this day how she did it. She stood up on her tippy toes all the way and birthed her baby. That was absolutely amazing.
You
So
know,
yeah.
the one amazing thing I want to tell you is that in researching birth positions and everything, I happened to get a couple of pictures of lay midwives in the First Nation communities in the
Uh-huh.
1600s, 1500s, and
Uh-huh.
how they birthed. It was in a religious book. They hang a rope on a tree,
Yeah.
and lo and behold, around that time, I was thinking about changing things in the birthing room. I went to Bangladesh on a medical mission. I go into a birthing unit. There's no beds. There's just a little chair. There's a nice mattress on the floor, but there's a rope on the ceiling. I
Yep.
couldn't believe it. I said, you know, this is across the world. Women
Yeah.
had the same idea.
Had the same idea. So it must be working. There must be something to it
So I
when,
guess they can deliver standing when they are hanging onto a rope.
yeah, yeah, for support. That's actually, you know, I've seen it here in different birth centers as well. You know, not everybody wants to utilize that, but it is working, and it's fascinating to see birth around the world, right? How some things have been.
Well, I have a couple of experiences. Even my daughter-in-law, she had a very difficult first birth,
Uh,
and the physician, which I would not name, but he's not around, so I can talk about it anyway. He was very slow in responding to a baby that was in great distress,
mm,
and was going to be my first grandchild. And I said,
mm,
"Excuse me, if you don't mind, I'm going to deliver this woman." So I delivered her. Anyway, it was a very long labor. They all
ah,
told her you have to have a cesarean the next time. So I said to my daughter-in-law, "Look, not me because you can't deliver your own family." I said, "Look, I'll speak to your doctor. We're not going to let you in labor 24 hours. And whenever you say you've had enough, you've had enough." Well, the next pregnancy, she delivered in 3 hours
ah.
and saved her a cesarean section, you know?
Uh,
So prejudging people
yeah,
saying, well, you know, you're too small, you can't deliver, we're going to do a C-section, that's bad. I
that's
mean,
bad.
we used to have at my hospital to keep the cesarean section honest. I used to have cesarean section percentage per physician.
Hmm.
So if somebody had 20% and all the rest of us had 12 or 8%,
Yeah, yeah.
we had to answer questions
I had to answer questions. Yeah,
because I
that's.
think the cesarean epidemic is terrible
Yeah,
right now.
it's terrible. I tell you, I'm here in South Florida. In some hospitals, in a big hospital in Miami, down in Miami, the C-section rate is up to 70%.
Yeah, well, there's,
A lot of elective C-sections though
yeah.
as well. You know, have to be fair about that. But yeah, it's bad.
Well,
It's really
in
bad.
Brazil, it's over 90%. And
Correct.
so,
Hmm.
but I visited a group of women in the capital, Brasilia, and they have formed a group of women and they're bringing down the cesarean section down to in the 20s, I think now.
Wow,
But
amazing.
it took them a lot of work and, you know,
Yeah.
support from international agencies because
Yes.
local people didn't want to support them.
Right. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, it takes a lot of work and effort, and help from the international community is always appreciated. Let's talk about your program here, your presentation with us at Gold. It's the 12 steps to safe and respectful mother, baby, family, maternity care. Talk a little bit about it. I know we want our listeners to come to the presentation, but just give us an overview because I think it's an amazing project, and I want our listeners to know a little bit about it.
Well, ICI was created by a group of women they had an organization that's called International Mother Baby Organization. There were only midwives and lay women. And me, I had formed at FIGO, the Federation of International Gynecologists. I wanted them to have a statement and to work on natural childbirth.
Hmm.
And by chance, I met these women and we decided, well, look, why are we working separately here? Why don't we combine our efforts? Took about a year and a half of, you know, negotiating the language, the steps, etc. And we came up with this idea of ICI, where if a hospital followed this, they would provide excellent care.
Hmm.
Women would be in very good hands. And then we created this program so that if they apply, they fill out questionnaires, they send in reports on evaluation of the care they do. they become a beginner, they become an implementer, and then finally, within 2 or 3 years, they become a demonstration hospital. We have one hospital here in Quebec, Canada, was so good they become a demonstration hospital within 6 months because they were
Wow.
all doing this. But
Yeah.
and I know that even major hospitals at major universities in Canada do not use questionnaires to their pregnant women.
Mm-hmm.
Many hospitals, I'd say the majority of the hospitals do not routinely question the care received by the woman and her families. And in some countries in South America, unfortunately, they don't allow the father to be there. In
Right.
certain cultures, it's not popular, but I worked in Africa and they changed that attitude quite quickly because I think it was so important to have the father there at
Yeah.
birth. So the continuity of care, I didn't have time to mention that, but another big benefit of the father there, they will take care of their babies.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, and this is something that's implemented all around the world, so that's fantastic. As you mentioned, that hospital in Canada that's already there and could do it quickly in 6 months, and other places, of course, it will
Well, we
take a
have
lot
in
longer.
Brazil, we have a hospital in Brazil that is a demonstration hospital. We have one in Turkey now. We
Nice,
have some
nice.
in Vietnam. In the US, just lately, I have 4 or 5 hospitals in the Eastern Coast
Hmm.
that want to implement this. I have
Great.
some midwifery centers in the
Yeah.
States, birthing centers. They want to be part of our world effort. We don't have funding right now. We're kind of looking for some basic funding to, have somebody that can answer the phone and stuff because we're all doing this voluntarily.
Yeah. Hmm.
I'm supposed to be retired, but I don't think I am a retired guy.
You can't retire, Dr. Lalonde. We need you here. Well, Dr. Lalonde, thank you so much for sharing your time here and expertise with us for the presentation at Gold and here chatting with me today. And to our listeners, if you want to find out more about this presentation and the other presentations in the conference, please visit goldobstetrics.com. You'll find information on all the presentation. The conference is starting on November 9th, and I hope to see you all there. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye for now.
All right. Good luck. Stay healthy, everyone. Bye.